The President of the United States has arrived in the UK ahead of a meeting with world leaders at the G7 summit this weekend. Joe Biden's first overseas trip as president begins tomorrow with a meeting with Boris Johnson, at which he's expected to say that the trade row between the EU and the UK should not be allowed to endanger peace in Northern Ireland. At the heart of that row is the Brexit agreement's Northern Ireland Protocol, which allows for border checks on goods going into the province from the rest of the UK. Ministers want those checks to end, arguing that they are leading to food shortages. Our North America editor, Jon Sopel, has this report.
For the first time since becoming president in January, Joe Biden steps out from Air Force One onto foreign soil. The soil of Suffolk and RAF Mildenhall, to be precise, on a perfect summer's evening. The president wants this first foreign trip that will take him to Cornwall, Brussels and Geneva to be seen as a decisive break from the Trump years. America no longer isolationist. Points he drove home to US servicemen and women at the base, once he told them to relax.
Please, at ease. I keep forgetting I'm president.
America is back in a role of global leadership, he told them.
At every point along the way, we're going to make it clear that the United States is back and democracies of the world are standing together to tackle the toughest challenges and the issues that matter most to our future. That we're committed to leading with strength, defending our values, and delivering for our people.
Whether it be COVID, the global economy or climate change, Joe Biden wants to see America at the forefront. And he looked ahead to the trickiest of his encounters on this trip, his meeting in Geneva with the Russian president.
I'm heading to the G7, then to the NATO ministerial, and then to meet with Mr. Putin to let him know what I want him to know.
One domestic issue where Joe Biden can be expected to weigh in is on Northern Ireland, where the US is watching with some unease British attempts to amend or renegotiate the Northern Ireland Protocol that puts a de facto border for trade between mainland Britain and the province. The US says the achievements of the 1998 Good Friday Agreement that played such a decisive role in bringing peace to Northern Ireland mustn't be put in jeopardy.
Whatever way they find to proceed must, at its core, fundamentally protect the gains of the Good Friday Agreement and not imperil that. And that is the message that President Biden will send when he's in Cornwall.
And if he had any indication that it would imperil the Good Friday Agreement, would that jeopardize a future US-UK trade deal?
I don't want to sit here today and negotiate in public around linkage or make some claim or threat. I would just say that our concern runs very deep on the Northern Ireland issue.
For G7 leaders, there'll be relief to see a more familiar style of American president. Less isolationist, more supportive of international bodies, less capricious. But there's unease too about how reliable a partner the US will be in the long term. How much longer the US can be seen as the preeminent superpower. Joe Biden's got his work cut out. Jon Sopel, BBC News.
Well, the European Commission has warned that the EU is ready to take resolute action if the UK fails to meet its obligations under the Northern Ireland Protocol. But as he arrived in Cornwall ahead of the G7 conference, Boris Johnson said a resolution to the row was easily doable and it was important to protect trade flows between Northern Ireland and Great Britain, as well as on the island of Ireland. Our political editor, Laura Kuenssberg, reports from Cornwall.
So is this just the beginning?
The beginning of what? The start of what could be a momentous week for this Prime Minister. To crank out deals with other democracies on climate, on COVID and cooperation.
I got it.
As world leaders make their way to Cornwall, he wants to be the host with the most.
Well, it's a big moment. Don't forget, this is the first time in 6 months in office almost that Joe Biden, the US president, has been able to come overseas for a major trip. It's his first time on the European continent. It's the first time any of us really have been able to see each other face to face since the pandemic began. And, you know, the pandemic, let's face it, was a pretty scratchy period.
So a tiny Cornish bay is being transformed into a stage for the world. Yet some of the nuts and bolts of the UK's friendship with its neighbours are already banged out of shape. While the Prime Minister was making his way to the southwest, in Westminster, this diplomatic spat with the EU was reaching new levels of danger.
The EU will not be shy in reacting swiftly, firmly and resolutely to ensure that the UK abides by its international law obligations. I was coming here with a hope for a breakthrough. Of course, now we have to consider our future steps. It's not too late. Let's correct the path. Let's focus on what unites us.
That tension's bound to be a topic of conversation here. This huge get-together is the first since the UK left the EU, and there's a heightened sense of hostility over how the Brexit deal's affecting Northern Ireland, just at the moment when Boris Johnson wants to be showing why friendship matters. Remember, under the deal, Northern Ireland has to follow some EU rules. So some goods are meant to be checked when they move from one coast to another. That created a trade border of sorts inside the United Kingdom, but it avoided the need for a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland. Now time's passed, the UK's frustrated. It wants the EU to be flexible about the deal, but the EU's perplexed. They think the UK's not willing to do what it agreed. And the time allocated to business to get used to some of the change is about to run out. And there's a standoff, because neither side appears willing to budge.
So the problem we've got is that the protocol is being implemented in a way which is causing disruption in Northern Ireland, and we had some pretty frank and honest discussions about that situation today. There weren't any breakthroughs, there aren't any breakdowns either, and we're going to carry on talking. What we really now need to do is very urgently find some solutions which support the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, support the peace process in Northern Ireland, and allow things to return to normal.
Once the final preparations are complete, there is a big chance for the Prime Minister and for his colleagues from around the world to show they can pull together. But unscripted moments, unplanned for spats, could always spoil the show.
And Laura is in St Ives for us this evening. Could this trade row overshadow the start of the summit?
Well, Sophie, big opportunities like a summit like this also present big risks, and it's also always possible that a disagreement over that could explode into something that could overshadow some of the events. But look, Joe Biden and Boris Johnson have always been strangers at the table when it comes to Brexit, and Downing Street isn't going to be remotely surprised that he will tell the UK and the EU that it's about high time that they cracked on and sorted out their standoff over the agreement that was done over Northern Ireland. So it's not going to come as a surprise. Whether it makes any difference to the two sides being able to settle their differences is a different question. And don't forget, later in the week, Boris Johnson will, of course, also be speaking to leaders like Emmanuel Macron and Angela Merkel, and some of those conversations could be quite tricky too. But look, Number 10's hope for this week runs much more broadly than any specific, although acute, problem like what's going on with the Northern Ireland hangover from the Brexit deal, if you like. Boris Johnson really sees this week as a chance to press refresh on the relationships between the world's biggest democracies. And initially, and perhaps most importantly, Number 10 believes that they have a willing partner in Joe Biden to get that done. And if you listen to the kind of language he was using tonight as he arrived on UK soil, well, I think it's fair to assume that he too sees this week as that kind of chance, really to show that democracies around the world, when they work together, can get things done. They don't just talk to each other, they don't just trade and exchange ideas, that actually, when they pull together, whether on the climate, whether on the COVID, whether on how the economy will recover after this extraordinary year, that rather than just communicating as individuals, as a team, they can actually get things done. That is the scale of Downing Street's ambition for the next few days. Whether the script goes according to plan, well, that's something that we're going to have to monitor. But Sophie, while these events sometimes, despite the razzmatazz, despite the souped-up security, end up feeling a bit like a talking shop, after the stresses and strains of this extraordinary year, it doesn't feel like this summit will be dismissed like that.
Laura Kuenssberg, thank you.